A pleasant morning to you all everyone, especially to our professor, Miss Maturan. Our given topic is all about behaviorist perspective. This presentation is more focused on human behavior and also animal behavior. Connectionism is a result of associations forming between stimuli and responses. Such associations or habits become strengthened or weakened by the nature and frequency of the stimuli and responses pairings. The original stimuli and responses framework of behavioral psychology presents Edward Lee Thorndike. So this morning I will give you a brief context about connectionism. So basically, this learning theory is a result of associations forming between stimuli and responses. Edward Lee Thorndike was an influential psychologist who developed the theory of connectionism within the context of behaviorism. Let's go to the next slide. So this is Edward Lee Thorndike, an American psychologist who was famous in psychology for his work on learning theory that lead to the development of operant conditioning within behaviorism. Overall, Thorndike's connectionisms provided valuable insights into the principles learning and the importance of consequences in shaping behavior. His work laid the foundation for subsequent theories and research in behaviorism, and organisms learn and adapt to their environments. So we have here the three primary laws of learning. The three primary laws of learning often referred to the principles of learning. These are foundational concepts that describes how learning takes place. These laws were proposed by American psychologist, what I've said, Edward Lee Thorndike in the early 20th century. Let's go to the first primary laws of learning. So the first primary laws of learning is law of exercise. So let's go find out what law of exercise is. Law of exercise. These tell us that the more stimuli or responses bond is practiced, the stronger it will become. Practice makes perfect seem to be associated with this. So basically, the law of exercise, also known as the law of use, is a principle in learning theory that suggests that the more often a stimulus and response association is reinforced, the stronger the connection becomes. According to this law, practice and repetition play a vital role in learning and memory formation. So, I will give you an example to illustrate the law of exercise. This must have a long example, but that's fine. Example of the law of exercise is, imagine a person, or let's give it a name, John. John wants to learn how to play a guitar. He starts taking guitar lessons and practices regularly. So initially, he struggles with finger placement and strumming techniques, but with consistent practice, he begins to improve every day. John follows a structured practice routine, spending a significant amount of time each day playing the guitar, practicing chords, and learning new things. Learning new songs. And he repeats specific exercises and techniques over and over again, gradually increasing the difficulty level as he progresses. Over time, John's skills on the guitar improved noticeably. The repetitive practice has strengthened and neutral connections and associated with the finger movements, hand-eye coordination, and musical memory. As a result, he becomes more proficient in playing complex chords, executing difficult techniques, and playing songs with ease. So that's the simple example of the law of exercise. These tell us the more and stimulus and response bond is practiced, the stronger it will become. So that is so sabotable. Let's go to the next primary law of learning. Law of exercise has two sub-laws, and these are law of use and law of disuse. Basically, the law of use, the more often an association is used, the stronger it becomes. Law of use, the longer an association is unused, the weaker it becomes. So that is so understandable naman, no? Let's go to the next slide. Let's find out what is the next primary laws of learning. This is law of readiness. Law of readiness, proper mindset is the key word in this law. This law states that the more ready an individual to respond to a stimulus, the stronger be the bond between them. So, law of readiness, also known as the law of preparation, is a concept in learning theory that suggests that learning is most effective when the learner is ready and willing to learn. According to this law, learning occurs more efficiently when the learner is motivated, prepared, and receptive to the information being presented. So, I have an example to illustrate the law of readiness. Let's consider a high school biology class where the teacher is introducing a new topic on the human circulatory system. The students in the class have varying levels of readiness and preparation for learning this topic. So we have here student A. Student A is highly motivated and has already read the textbook chapter on the circulatory system before coming to class. They are eager to learn more and have even prepared a list of questions to ask the teacher. When the teacher begins the lesson, student A is actively engaged, asking questions and making connections between the new information and their prior knowledge. Due to their readiness and enthusiasm, student A grasps the concepts quickly and retains the information effectively. So we have student B naman. On the other hand, is not as prepared. The student B is not that as prepared. They haven't read the textbook chapter and are not particularly interested in the topic. Excuse. their readiness level is low and they feel disengaged during the lesson. They struggle to understand the new information and find it difficult to retain the details despite the teacher's best efforts. Student B's lack of readiness hinders their learning experience. So these example demonstrates how the law of readiness influences the effectiveness of learning. Student A's readiness and motivations enhance their learning experience, making it more successful. In contrast, student B's lack of readiness and disinterest negatively impact their learning, making it less effective. Let's go to the next or last primary laws of learning. And this is law of effect. Law of effect means that the learning takes place properly when it results in satisfaction and the learner derives pleasure out of it. This law is based on the feelings of the learner. An experience that produces feelings of defeat, anger, frustration, futility, or confusion in a student is unpleasant for them. Law of effect proposed by, again, psychologist Edward Thorndike states that the consequences of an action determine the likelihood of that action being repeated in the future. It suggests that behaviors that are followed by positive outcomes become rewards are more likely to be repeated, while behaviors that result in negative consequences are less likely to be repeated. So, I have an example again to illustrate the law of effect. Let's imagine a scenario in which a student, Sarah is studying for a history test. She spends several hours reviewing her notes, reading the textbook, and creating flashcards to help her remember key facts. When she takes the test, Sarah performs exceptionally well and receives a high grade. In this case, the positive consequences of receiving a high grade acts as a reward of Sarah's studying behavior. According to the law of effect, the positive outcome increases the likelihood that Sarah will continue to study diligently in the future. The satisfaction she feels from her success on the test reinforces the behavior of studying, making it more likely to be repeated in subsequent study sessions. Conversely, let's consider another student. Let's name it Alex. Alex, who puts minimal effort into studying. For the same history test, Alex spends most of his time playing video games and only briefly skims through the textbook the night before the exam. As a result, Alex performs poorly on the test and receives a low grade. In this case, the negative consequence of receiving a low grade acts as a punishment for Alex's lack of studying behavior. According to the law of effect, the negative outcome decreases the likelihood that Alex will continue to put minimal effort into studying in the future. The disappointment and dissatisfaction from his poor performance discourage his behavior. So, it's clear naman no sa mga examples. Let's go to the next slide. Here, there is an example na nakalimutan ko. Example of the law of effect. When a child solves questions correctly, he or she feels encouraged to do more. But if he or she fails repeatedly, he or she is unwilling to make subsequent attempts. So that's the example of law of effect. Thus, the law of effect states that responses to a situation that are followed by a satisfaction are strengthened. And another one is responses that are followed by discomfort are weakened. In other words, if a behavior leads to a positive outcome or reward, it strengthens the association between the behavior and the desired outcomes, making the behavior more likely to occur again in similar situations. So this slide is not my part. Almar Camamara will continue this slide. So let's go move forward so that I will going this one. Thorndike's connectionism's educational implications. The task can be started from the easier aspect towards its difficult aspect, which help the children to learn properly. Trial and error method can be used in teaching. Rewards and punishment affect the learning of the child. Habits are formed as a result of repetition. With the help of this theory, the wrong habits can be modified and good habits can be strengthened. Practice is the main feature of the trial and error method. It helps in reducing errors committed by children in a learning concept. So, Edward Thorndike, who focused on the study of learning and developed the concept of the law of effect, which forms the basis of his connectionist theory. So, here are some of the educational implications of Thorndike's connectionism. The first is reinforcement and reward. Second, trial and error learning. Third is drill and practice. Fourth is active learning. And the fifth is transfer of learning. So that would be all. That's the end of our presentation. Hope you have learned something. Thank you.